They fascinate, they excite, they stir a long-hidden and primeval fear in man. This fear leads some to hate, while inspiring others to spend a lifetime seeking knowledge of sharks. The earliest shark research was conducted by scientists eager to find a way to protect man from the predators. In the process, much was learned about shark biology, but the original goal of preventing shark attacks was never achieved. And despite the best efforts of science, occasional attacks still occur. David Miles, an Abalone Diving, Northern California resident, is recovering from a recent shark attack. He will not enter the water near his home, where just 7 months before, a 17-foot white shark nearly swallowed him whole. And until now, he refused to tell his nightmarish tale of survival, where on his return from a free dive, he nearly became a modern-day Jonah.
I felt the teeth crunching down on me, and my eyes were open inside of its mouth until it started crunching down, and I felt my skull was being crushed. You know, I started wincing, and then I felt the shark open its mouth back up again, and that was my window of opportunity to escape. And I put my hands up as soon as I felt the pressure release, and I shoved my head and shoulders out.
Shark attack is only one aspect of shark research being conducted today. Recently, scientists have made breakthrough discoveries in shark biology and behavior, knowledge that may someday prove the best weapon against attack. This newfound knowledge may also benefit man in many other ways. Shark fisheries, properly managed, are a valuable source of protein to feed the world's hungry. Sharks also do a service by keeping the ocean clean and balanced, and somewhere in the shark's disease-resistant body, a cure for cancer may exist. "26 miles southwest of Los Angeles, the small resort island of Catalina is an ideal place to study sharks. The research vessel Discovery, carrying a team of scientists, is a frequent visitor to the many protected coves of the island. The team is led by Dr. Don Nelson of California State University, Long Beach, a dedicated scientist who has spent over 30 years studying sharks. As a behaviorist, Dr. Nelson often leaves the laboratory to observe sharks in their natural habitat.
Sharks are not an easy animal to study. In general, the big ones are shy, they're, you might say, wide-ranging, and they live in a concealing environment, which is the ocean. And for many of them, unless you bait them in, it's next to impossible to see them.
Don is joined by graduate student Bill Fouts, studying angel sharks. John Manley, conducting studies on leopard sharks for his master's thesis. And Rocky Strong, now a doctoral candidate. Today, they dive at Ship Rock, an island pinnacle abundant with many species of shark. The clear, cool Catalina waters are rich with vast forests of giant kelp. These rapidly growing strands are a basic part of the complex food web. It is a diversity that stretches from billions of microscopic plankton to the seldom encountered apex predator, the white shark. Although rare here, it can sometimes be seen cruising these waters in search of prey. Far more common off Catalina is the blue shark, an open ocean or pelagic species. As a migratory feeder, the blue may travel hundreds or thousands of miles in a year. In the shallows around the island lives the leopard shark, the graceful bottom dweller, the angel shark, and the docile horn shark, who hides among the kelp and rocks during the day and swims out at night seeking urchins and occasionally small fish. More a grazer than a predator, This species of shark may be preyed upon by larger sharks and by aquarium collecting divers. While a student of Nelson, Rocky Strong did his master's thesis research on the horn shark. In his unique project, Rocky found the adult horns move into the shallows at night to feed, returning to the depths where they spend their days. Until Rocky's study of the shark's relationship to its environment, few field studies had been done on the horn. And although he has gone on to study the high-profile white shark and do his PhD work on the lemon shark, Rocky has continued his interest in the shy, reclusive horns, who are often difficult to find along the kelp-covered slopes off Ship Rock.
Each time we have an opportunity to come back here and dive around, I always look for sharks that I tagged here 4, 5, 6 years ago. We tagged 400 plus horn sharks during my study, and then several were tagged long before. But sharks in that very same area have been found with our tags in them after periods of up to 20 years. And that was actually where they were tagged, and they're found right back at that spot 20 years later.
The horn shark is so named for the spines that protrude from its dorsal fins. Rocky's studies have shown that the spines actually change color with the shark's diet. This was discovered after some of Rocky's subjects who had purple spines were found to have a diet rich in purple sea urchins. For the young horn shark, however, the spines are its primary defense against predators like the angel shark.
The spines are very sharp, and at least as juvenile sharks, their spines remain sharp, and then they wear them down. But the angel shark would seem to be in this environment the most likely predator of these guys, and indeed, when you pass a horn shark over an angel shark, he scarfs him up. Should we let the little guy go?
That's a good idea.
Typical of the 370 species of shark, the horn shark matures late and produces relatively few offspring. This makes most sharks highly vulnerable to overfishing, and many species are now believed to be in danger. The white shark was recently protected by California lawmakers, and as a result, the deliberate fishing of this shark will be banned there for 5 years, a period in which scientists hope to more accurately estimate the population.
This bill to protect the white shark is quite unique in that there really wasn't a large body of scientific evidence on the precise size of the white shark population. You might say it was sort of a preemptive protection of the white shark because it was suspected that the population numbers are really quite low, possibly in the low hundreds of large individuals, and it wouldn't take much to knock that population way down and possibly risk extinction.
The angel shark is another species that has become increasingly rare. Once common at Catalina, they may have fallen victim to commercial gill netting.
And the one you use at night is just a block.
This development concerns Dr. Nelson and his students, who were unable to find an angel at their dive off Ship Rock. Tonight, they will try a night dive to seek out these nocturnal sharks. They pick a secluded cove to conduct their search, one they will record on video to study later. Cruising along the bottom, a stingray passes a flatfish buried on the silty cove floor. John Manley discovers a juvenile horn shark, typical in the shallows of the cove at night. Near a rocky outcrop, the divers stumble across a menacing inhabitant. This startled moray eel is not as vicious as it looks, but the divers wisely keep their distance. Probing further in the rocks, Manley discovers they are replete with eels, this one fascinated by his own reflection.
It's kind of like chumming for sharks. You just chum for morays in that area and they all come out, and then we shoot the video. If we do it again, and we've got some good stuff, but that's definitely the way to do it.
Although they witnessed a wide variety of underwater life in the cove, the scientists did not find a single angel shark, nor a clue as to why this once predominant species has apparently disappeared. As they continue their research projects, Dr. Nelson and his students move to a protected cove inhabited by numerous sharks.
Okay, have you got the bow line off, Bill?
The pioneering work of Dr. Nelson and his students has not only attracted the attention of the scientific community, but environmentalists as well. Noted ocean conservationist and filmmaker Jean-Michel Cousteau has learned of the shark studies being conducted and will meet Dr. Nelson and the students to get a first-hand look. The arid hillsides of Catalina are now in bloom, carpeting the scenic vistas of this desert island. Here on the North Shore, the Discovery drops anchor in Big Fisherman's Cove, a designated wildlife preserve. Adjacent to the USC Wrigley Marine Science Center, the shallow, calm water is an ideal place for students to conduct studies on sharks. It has been several years since Cousteau visited the recently protected cove, which has seen a resurgence in some of its shark populations.
Hi, Doctor. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Remember Rocky and
Rocky!
see you. And Bill here. Oh,
How are you?
anyway, let's take up.
One of the most abundant species in the cove is the shy leopard shark. Once relatively scarce here, the leopard sharks are mysteriously on the increase, puzzling experts. John Manley's first-of-its-kind research project may reveal why the sharks have returned.
I've seen those leopard sharks there, and why is it that they were not there before? What's your explanation? What kind of research have you been able to conduct on these very unusual creatures there?
We do know that since fishing pressure has been relieved, the animals have returned to this area. An interesting part about this population is that they seem to be all female. Now that could indicate that they're taking refuge in this area since it is protected and the population has been on a rise. And if there's breeding behavior around the island, this area could serve as a temperature refuge and basically a refuge from predation and possibly a feeding ground for the females as they gestate their young.
Manley's unique research involves tracking the sharks with tiny transmitters hidden in squid bait. Once the leopard takes the bait, Manley then uses a receiver to track and record the shark's movements.
What I'm doing primarily is a behavioral study on movement patterns of leopard sharks here at Big Fisherman's Cove in Catalina. All right, we got a track going.
Good deal.
Nice big female, took the bait. My study focuses on day-night differences in movement patterns. And to do that, I track the sharks with acoustic telemetry, meaning I tag the animals with pingers, acoustic transmitters, and in a boat or in the water with receiving gear, I can then listen to that sound and follow the animals and track positions.
Okay, it looks like they've got a shark tagged. In other words, the shark has taken the bait. They're starting to track with the underwater receiver.
And how far down can this receiver receive the message?
Oh, from about a good mile on a good quiet day. Certainly well within the confines of the cove here. But John has tracked these sharks several miles down the island.
Several
at night.
miles, huh?
Right, that's a general pattern for many sharks that they mill around in a relatively confined daytime core area, and then as soon as it gets to be dusk, they take off for a much larger nighttime foraging area.
All right, I'm going to get in the water, see if I can verify the animal and signal strength, get a position on it.
Make sure that pinger's still in there.
All right. Leopard sharks are a species of shark that have not been studied in depth in the field. They are very heavily studied in the laboratory. As a species in our California waters that are fished very heavily, as scientists, we want to give commercial fisheries the information necessary to act in a conscientious way and fish in a reasonable way. So part of the study like this, movement pattern behavior, is to allow conscientious use of a resource like leopard sharks, and to find out where the sharks are going, how they aggregate, how their school is organized, and how they basically spend their time.
Where these sharks and many other species spend their time is still a question that scientists are working to answer. At the University of Hawaii Marine Labs on Coconut Island, a team of researchers is conducting studies that may answer questions about a wide variety of sharks. Chris Lowe is another former student of Don Nelson. Inspired by Don's work, Chris earned his master's at Cal State Long Beach and is now at the University of Hawaii to study hammerheads. His current PhD research involves measuring the swimming energy used by sharks.
I'm interested in looking at the bioenergetics of these hammerheads here in the bay, and one way of getting at that is looking at their energetics from a physiological point of view. So the way I decided to do this is I've built a large swim tunnel, which is basically a treadmill for fish. And I can put the sharks in the swim tunnel and swim them at different speeds and measure the amount of oxygen they take out of the water. Now, the amount of oxygen that an animal consumes is equivalent to the number of calories they burn. So by measuring their amount of oxygen and correlating that to their swimming speed, I can measure the amount of calories these sharks consume in the field. So this will provide the scientific community with some number, some way of quantifying a shark's position in its marine environment.
Sharing the same lab with Chris Lowe, Brad Weatherby is also a future shark doctor, with his PhD work focusing on deep-water sharks. Brad's challenge is studying species of sharks that are virtually impossible to observe in the wild. This pregnant deep-water shark was captured at depths of over 1 mile. Her fully developed embryos were almost ready to be born into a world of perpetual darkness.
It's an environment where it's dark and it's cold and it's under high pressure and there's little food. So it's a harsh environment in many ways, and one of the main adaptations to this environment is neutral buoyancy. A lot of people have the misconception that sharks have to swim continuously to stay alive. But in deep sea sharks, they approach neutral buoyancy so that they, with very little forward motion, they can maintain their position in the water column and they won't sink. And this is because of their large, oily liver.
Together, these young shark experts have labored on numerous studies, but none more important than their current work with Dr. Kim Holland. Initiated by a series of recent attacks by tiger sharks, the study will attempt to clear up the unsubstantiated belief that tigers are territorial to those areas where attacks have occurred. With funding from the state and Sea Grant, They will use ultra-modern tracking equipment to determine the basic movement patterns of the species.
A lot of people felt, though, tiger sharks are nearshore animals, spending a majority of their time cruising along a coastline. And we kind of suspected this as well, and when we started this telemetry study. However, the first few sharks that we've tracked indicate the capability for them to travel from island to island and to travel across blue water quite easily and show a really high degree of directionality, meaning they seem to know exactly where they're going. The problem that we have is we don't know where the animals go, where the animals come from, how long they take to reach maturity, how quickly they grow. This is something that we're going to be able to find out using this technology, but it's going to take a fair bit more study.
Good morning, boys and girls. This morning we have a video tape for you to view. The tape is about sharks.
With shark encounters a fact of life in Hawaii, the state has chosen to implement a one-of-a-kind program to educate the public on sharks. Using a video, posters, and brochures, the program targets all age groups, and especially children, who may be most vulnerable to rumor and media sensation generated by shark attack.
A lot of kids go in the water. There's an awful lot of kids who are surfers and boogie boarders, and those are the groups that are most at risk when it comes to shark attacks. What we tried to do was to create materials that could be widely distributed so that as much of the public as possible could find out especially what behaviors put them most at risk. We also wanted to make sure that people understood that there's a lot of different kinds of sharks out there. They're not all dangerous.
Most of this time I was kind of afraid of sharks. But after seeing the video, I kind of feel better about sharks. And I think that they don't do much harm to people, it's just by accident.
If I encountered a shark, I think I'd still be pretty scared, but I'm not afraid to go in the ocean now or anything.
They're here for a reason and they are part of the food chain. And even though they're afraid of them, they shouldn't kill them, just try and be cautious about swimming.
Changing public perception about sharks as mindless killers is something scientists are working to achieve, since the animals often face overfishing with little or no public sympathy. With the Jaws phenomenon now a fading memory of the 1970s, a new generation may finally be able to look at these misunderstood predators without prejudice. But in Hawaii, recent shark attacks have left 2 bathers dead, another missing, and many more very frightened. John Mozo lives on the north shore of Oahu with his wife and young son. A photographer and avid surfer, John's life was changed forever by his own brush with a tiger shark.
I never thought it would happen to me. You know, just surfing, I just go out and enjoy the waves and try not to think about sharks. When I first felt the shark touch me, I felt kind of like a scooping sensation. You know, scooping and clamping at the same time. And, you know, I could hardly believe it when I turned around and, you know, saw the shark. A couple seconds later, I just thought, this is it. This is death for me. I'm going down right now, you know. There's no way I can escape from this guy, you know. He's just so big. I have no doubt in my mind that if I hadn't jerked my feet away, if my body hadn't reflexed as fast as it would have, you know, I wouldn't have had any feet at all. On the way to the hospital, I was thinking about that I almost died, I almost left. And the first thing I thought about was my wife and my son. And I was thinking what would happen to them if I left. And, you know, it really hit me hard, and, you know, I started crying, and, you know, I was just thinking about that and how much I really do love them and want to take care of them.
On board Discovery, Dr. Nelson and his students prepared to conduct experiments on the angel shark. So far, the divers have had little luck in locating an angel shark. Today, they will descend to 70 feet and scour the sandy cove bottom for a specimen.
We'll be looking for an angel shark down there, and if we find one, let me know and we'll come over and I'll pass this fish model over its head. Probably anterior approach,
and see if it'll attack it. So far I've found that they usually do attack this unless they've attacked it before and found out it's not good tasting. So.
Bill Fout's study of the angel shark is an attempt to determine what cues trigger its unique ambush attacks. When presented to the shark, the rubber fish model offers no sound and no smell, leading the scientists to believe this shark may be a purely visual predator.
Angel sharks are cryptically colored. They're colored the same color basically as the silt that you see in this cove. And they're nomadic. They make long-range movements at night. They settle down, and then they bury themselves in the sand. And when a fish swims over their heads, they'll push with their pectoral fins up, and their jaws are protrusible, so their jaws come out. And there's a large sucking with the strike, so they can catch a fish that's fairly large.
Finally, the team has located a shark, and Bill begins the experiment, while Rocky Strong videotapes for later analysis. In all, Bill observes 3 attacks that add to his slowly accumulating data. Collected during field studies, important findings like these will someday be presented to students in the lab and classroom.
If you look at the teeth of the mako shark, they're very fine, smooth, but very sharp.
As a biology professor for almost 30 years, Don has been able to relate his experiences to a wide variety of students, from his advanced master's candidates to undergraduate non-biology majors, who often come up with some interesting responses.
I get surprised by the answers to the questions I ask. Like I once had a student identify a Pacific mackerel as a tiger shark. I don't know if that was in jest or whether that was an honest mistake. One of the real rewards of this business here as a professor is the dealing with the graduate students, working together on these shark problems, because rarely are these problems you can do alone. And over the years, I've been very fortunate to have very high caliber students choose to come and join the shark research project, and that's one of the things I'm most proud of. After all, these young scientists that we work with here are really the next generation of shark doctors.
Don, as a scientist, has not only inspired me, but all of his students, many of whom are still doing this sort of work.
The way I look at it, if you're on the West Coast and you want to study sharks, Don Nelson probably is the person to study with.
Everything is precise to Don, and in some senses I get the idea that, you know, he's an engineer in a scientist's body.
Once you get to know him, he's something I think of a genius.
Don first became interested in sharks while a graduate student at the University of Miami. Under Professor Warren Wisby, he worked with fellow grad student Sonny Gruber on a project to determine if sharks were attracted by sound.
One of the first studies that we did as graduate students in Miami was the acoustic attraction experiments, where we played back these sounds of struggling fish on the reef, and for the first time showed that sharks could be attracted by low-frequency sounds. And this is something that we suspected because of the early experience in spearfishing out there, where you would spear a fish and long before any odors could possibly reach the horizon, there'd be sharks coming in. And the main suspect was sounds. And so then we went out and recorded those sounds and simulations of them and played them back, and lo and behold, sharks were attracted.
Don's acoustic studies led to his PhD and a university teaching career. His first grad student, Dick Johnson, is now also a respected shark expert, the first of many Nelson protégés who have added to the pool of shark knowledge. Nelson and Johnson's playback study at Eniwetok in 1971 was the first of several collaborations between the two shark experts. On the same trip, Johnson suggested an experimental study that for the first time documented pre-attack behavior in sharks. Characterized by tense, exaggerated swimming, the gray reef shark exhibits this threat display when provoked and about to attack. Always attracted to the water, Don began diving as a youth off the New Jersey shore, shortly after the introduction of Cousteau's aqualung. He began his studies in an era when sharks were viewed as both dangerous and a nuisance.
What drove funding back then was the idea of sharks as hazards. And then the idea that if you're going to avoid the hazard, you should know something about the stimuli that sharks use to find their prey.
As a result, most shark research being conducted at the time was in an effort to understand and prevent shark attacks on humans, but much was learned about the basic biology of the shark in the process. Don's fellow grad student and longtime colleague, Sonny Gruber, was conducting a study inspired by shark attack. It was long believed that sharks had poor eyesight and were unable to see color, until a Navy disaster at sea where several downed pilots in orange flight suits were attacked by sharks, while others in green suits were left alone. Sonny's study indicated that sharks were not only able to see well, but also in color, after he used an electron microscope to detect color-sensing cones in their retinas. This research was valuable information to the Navy, but Sonny's research was twofold. During behavioral experiments, sharks that normally wouldn't blink were trained to blink at a flashing light, showing a conditioned response, much like Pavlov's salivating dogs. Sonny then was actually able to communicate, in a sense, with the sharks, asking them questions about their vision.
Popular image of shark has been of this stupid, blind, basically swimming nose with no ability to learn. And I can tell you from personal experience from my very own studies that under laboratory conditions, sharks can learn certain tasks as quickly as mammals like rabbits and rats, and that their visual system is reasonably good.
After 30 years of study, Sonny is still in the shark business and has left a legacy of students. Today, his studies focus on the behavior and ecology of the lemon shark, including its navigational abilities. Sharks that are tagged and tracked are found to have many of the same directional instincts as homing pigeons. It is just one other unique element of shark behavior that has continued to surprise and fascinate shark scientists over the years.
There's lots of things sharks can teach us, not only about biology, ecology, and evolution, but there are potentially very important medical facts and aspects we can learn from the study of sharks. For instance, sharks having skeletons composed entirely of cartilage have a special resistance to cancer mechanisms.
Recently, these two shark scientists have made great strides in the age-old battle to develop a shark repellent.
The repellent we developed is kind of like a mace where you spray it in the face of a shark, and if it enters its mouth and gets into the gill area, it will, no matter if it's a 20-foot great white shark or a 2-foot lemon shark, it will repel that shark, and that shark will go away and stay away.
The idea is to develop something that is repellent but not lethal. We really don't want to kill these sharks in most situations.
Now, for the first time, a diver will put himself face to face with a shark using the repellent in an untested prototype gun. Passing the bustling resort town of Avalon, Dr. Nelson and crew chart a course for the outer waters off Catalina in search of blue sharks. It will be the first chance to test a prototype shark repellent device, many years in development. To attract the sharks, a bloody mixture of ground fish known as chum is used. With the right amount of wind and current, this smelly concoction spreads out for miles, creating an odor corridor that can be picked up by sharks far away. A shark's hunt for food involves all of his senses, used at different stages. From a distance, hearing or smell alert the shark to a potential meal. Closer in, vision and the lateral line, a shark's ability to sense vibration and movement, come into play. Highly sensitive electroreception is used on final approach. At the end of the sequence, touch and taste complete the process. Before the experiment, Don explains the new repellent device to Marty Snyderman, an experienced diver who will conduct the underwater trials.
Okay, Marty, this is the prototype chemical squirt gun that we're going to be testing today on the blue sharks.
Powered by a CO2 cartridge, the gun has a flip-over trigger that, when fired, shoots a pulse of irritating surfactant chemical. The chemical is non-toxic to humans and sharks, and far less dangerous than explosive bang sticks and spear guns often used to protect divers. Shark repellents have been in use for many years, yet none have ever proven effective. The Navy-issued Shark Chaser was designed to cloak downed airmen. It was later shown to have little effect on sharks, but it did improve the morale of pilots who flew missions over shark-filled seas. An inflatable shark screen was later shown to have limited success against sharks by keeping a potential victim's body fluids and odors inside and concealing the body's outline. After several hours of waiting, the first blue sharks arrive at the Discovery. A safety diver enters the water first to determine the numbers and sizes of the sharks. The first to arrive is a 5.5-footer, large enough for the experiment, but not too large for the divers to handle. Out of the haze, a second, larger shark arrives, this one nearly 7 feet.
The blue shark is really quite good for these repellent tests because they can be baited right up to the boat in relatively significant numbers and are relatively fearless as far as approaching divers. And they are a shark that's fairly large and have bitten people and can be dangerous. Not as dangerous as certain species like the white, but they are a shark that you should be cautious about because they will bite.
Using a stainless steel chainmail suit for protection, Marty's goal will be to lure the shark close enough to bite one arm while firing the repellent gun with his free hand. Although the chemical has been proven to repel sharks, the gun is untested, and Marty will only have a single shot, one that must be delivered at point-blank range to be effective.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Slide it up. Slide it up here. Push it. There you go. Thank you. Right. Yep, I got you.
I'm not going to be able to get in before they get ready.
Marty will be joined underwater by Rocky Strong, who, without a protective suit, will observe from the cage. The scientists have launched the shark cage not only to protect Rocky, but to provide a stable handhold against the current. Although they are highly stimulated by the bait and chum in the water, the hungry sharks are cautious. To lure the blues away from the bait near the boat, Rocky continues chumming from the cage, hoping to attract a subject to Marty. But the shark snatches Marty's fish away before a shot can be fired. He will have to draw them closer. Meanwhile, an aggressive blue has moved in on Rocky, who must carefully evict the curious shark. On the verge of a feeding frenzy, a third shark arrives, slowly circling on the threshold of attack. Pumping the trigger with his free hand, Marty is unable to fire the gun. Something has gone wrong.
I would have to take my other hand and brace it so I could push against it hard, because it just wouldn't fire on a one-hand thing, and I really had to lock this down and then get on top of it. Because when we fired it did work that way. But when I did, I pressed it.
The problems with this chemical repellent device is that in the past we've tested with a rather large device with a fairly large quantity of chemical. We really need to determine how small an amount will effectively repel. And if that small amount can be effectively delivered by a conveniently sized device, one that will eventually be reloadable.
A few minor modifications to the trigger, and the gun is ready to refire its payload of 150 cc's of the surfactant chemical. The chemical, although not lethal or permanently harmful to the sharks, has been effectively tested against even the much larger great white. The new compact gun has never been tested in a biting situation, and should it fail again, Marty will have the unenviable task of prying a 6-foot blue shark off his arm. Again, Marty has lured the shark into close range. To Marty's relief, the gun fires, sending this shark speeding off into the ocean depths.
Okay. Loaded again. So it's really right in the corner of his mouth, and you can see the surfactant go right in. I mean, a big cloud of it. It was obviously right in his face, and the shark reacted almost the instant the surfactant was released. So I thought it was a good test, and it obviously got a result that you were looking for. It surprised me that it happened that quickly, that the shark reacted that quickly, but it really did, and it took off.
The scientists will continue their tests until they feel the repellent system, to someday be known as Shark Repel, is perfected. For Don Nelson, Sonny Gruber, and their students who have worked on shark behavior, the repellent research is just one of many projects designed to benefit both shark and man, a new balance that has been achieved through a new understanding of sharks.
I think the emphasis is different now. Back then, sharks were treated mainly as hazards, and the research was aimed at learning information that could help protect people from the danger of sharks. Nowadays, I think sharks are being treated more like a very interesting part of the biodiversity of the marine environment, and what they do themselves is of interest, period, aside from any danger that might be involved. And I think that is what research is all about nowadays, more so than just a direct attempt to counter any danger.
These shark doctors have succeeded in looking beyond the danger and into the real underwater world of the shark, a mysterious world that is now finally being understood.